Well, hello, everybody. Good morning, good evening, good day, good night. See you later. We're signing off. No, wherever you are on the planet right now, it is the 14th, and not the 13th, not the 12th, but the 14th of June. And it is 2017. And here we are. This is a weekly teleseminar, and we're glad to be here. And a lot of really cool things have been going on. And Doug and I agreed, I don't know, a few weeks ago to start writing a book together. And it's called The Life of Practice, or The Practice of Life. I mean, working title. And it's all about what we talk about here: integral practice, the meditation, the basic, you got to work your body, your exterior, and you got to work your interiors in a way that comes together and puts us in that evolutionary zone where we become the best version of ourselves, and we deliver lavishly and richly and skillfully and compassionately our gifts to the world. And we love those who we need to love, and we do the work that we need to do so that we actually have good human lives. So we started writing it, and we're both writers, and we're happier when we're writing. And I just started having to do it, and really, really excited. And we're coming out with, this is so bloody cool, we're coming out with a suite of new tracks this week called Stealing Flow, which is kind of a riff off the best-selling book Stealing Fire, which is talking about flow states and these states that we get into, these almost superhuman states of where we're able to do things, we're able to talk and write and understand and jump off buildings. I mean, all extreme athletes have been doing this kind of stuff in sports and any field of human endeavor. And there's this feeling of selflessness, like your ego is not in conflict anymore, it's just coming through you. Timeless, time just like gets out of the way. It's effortless. You feel like you're being played instead of trying to play something. And it's a very rich experience, that wisdom and understanding and new connections and new patterns emerge that seem to be really valid and real. And so we've been experiencing that. I've been experiencing that, and those of you I believe, that have been using iAwake and doing the work for a while have experienced those things. But when Doug came on board and started working with us, he's a professional writer among many other things, but he had been developing for years a suite of, why don't you talk about it, Doug?
Yeah, it was a tool to help me get into the flow state when I was writing. I found that there's a place that was challenging for me to get to where everything seemed to flow more freely. I was one of these people who often let the self-doubt and the critical voices and all these kind of things get in the way. And when you're really writing and doing a good job with it, you just have to let it go and get into it. And you get to this kind of magical place where the words come and it feels like you're a conduit for some incredible thing. So I realized that entrainment could be a great tool to do that. And there were some great meditation tracks out there, but nothing quite right to get me into the flow space I needed for writing. So I started creating Stealing Flow, and then I realized, I also need to brainstorm, I need to edit, I need to meditate, I need to relax, and this whole suite of tracks kind of grew up around that. It's useful for a lot more than writing. Whatever your creative practice is, or getting ready for presentations, speaking, communicating, doing a podcast, whatever your calling is, it will help you realize it and help you give your best gifts to the world when you listen to it.
Yeah, and it sounds very different than anything that we've ever released before, because of coming through Doug, and I've always said about, the people that create our products, we have we have Nadja Lynn, we have Lee Spusta, I have Doug, who else am I not talking about? Somebody. Oh, of course, we always have Eric Thompson, who started and still does work with us. And so, we just have this. Oh, and then Joe from the UK, So, but this stuff is, and there's this one website. It's like a radio thing, and it just creates all these things using a computer, which is understandable. You'll get part of it, but this stuff is like half art, half science. There's both parts. And we have these incredibly gifted technological Doug, yourself, your training is in being a sound engineer and a musician and a meditator and a practitioner and all this stuff. So it just all comes together. And I've been using that stuff, being the CEO of iAwake, I have the blessing of being, part of the alpha and beta testing of all these products. And I've been using them before I do my normal meditation, and it wakes me up to be really ready to go into a deeper place. And the last few days I've been using it. I've been doing it for about 25 to 30 minutes. And man, I'm getting really productive. I've just had just great, answering emails and writing letters and writing the book and talking to people. It's been really, really fun. And the nice thing is like when you come out of that state, that flow state of conscious state, it's not like the drugs are wearing off and you're all exhausted and tired and, depressed and your neurochemistry is all screwed up. It's like, hey, you're just relaxed and like, oh, now I can just kind of be present, be in my body, and I don't have to be channeling or I don't have to be doing this stuff. So we don't want to live in there all the time. But when we're in the process, we're doing our work and, giving our gifts to the world, God, it's what we all strive for, because you don't want to sit there and just be stuck. You want to be actually doing the work. We have limited time in our little bodies to do this stuff, and we don't want to waste it. We want to give the best versions of ourselves. So this is just it's just tremendous. And I noticed you have this thing of what do we have here in the chat room for everybody?
I just posted the link to Stealing Fire and saying hello to everyone. Right. Yep.
Yeah.
But the warm-up track was kind of the surprise hit of this thing. When I created it, I didn't quite realize the effectiveness that it was going to have as a tool to lead into other deeper meditations. But wow, it's been amazing in that regard.
You've been using it that way also?
Yeah. Oh,
isn't that cool? Isn't that cool?
It just really deepens the experience. It's real nice.
In this book, Stealing Fire, they didn't talk about us or this kind of technology. They talk about using microdoses of LSD, psilocybin, doing really sketchy, scary things, extreme sports stuff, and centrifuges that swirl your body around in these big gyms, and all these big corporations are trying to figure out how to get into this place because they know that when they're there, they create the next iPhone, they create the next breakthroughs. They connect, that's where the corporate heads of Silicon Valley, et cetera, want to be. And I think we just kind of nail this thing, with our technology. You can do it, and it's not unpleasant. In fact, it's pleasant. It's not addictive. It won't screw you up, and it just works without, doing anything illegal or sketchy or weird or, or things that'll cost you, millions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's really great. And I'm so excited about it.
You can use the Stealing Flow Suite while you're actually engaged and doing the work, of course, but you can also use it, like you're saying, to train your brain to enter that state more easily. The more often you use those particular tracks, the more your brainwaves become familiar with those patterns. So you can get to it when you need to and then decompress when you're done. No come down, no hangover, no legal risk, no getting addicted to it in that way. And it's really powerful too in the releasing phase. One of the tracks there is a relax, release, and recharge track. And John, you were kind of going at this earlier too, talking into this, that the cycle is so important. You can't just chase it all the time. Your brain neurologically needs that time to decompress and recharge in order to continue to bring your best to it.
So it's just like a performance, if you're a great musician or a lousy musician, whatever, when you're on stage, you want to, but you don't want to do that afterwards. When you come down, you want to come back and be a person and change into a different state that's appropriate for what you're doing. And Teja, you sent us a link here about, since we mentioned depression. I hadn't realized that I have, but yeah, if I didn't talk about it now, we're talking about it always, because it's something that so many of us suffer from. And everything we seem to be talking about with iAwake technologies, or integral recovery, or integral practice, or stealing flow, all of this stuff are really antidotes to depression, and I think that flow states in general are an antidote to depression. What you don't want to be is bipolar, which has sometimes happened, where you just go into the depths of despair and you're inhaled, and you go up to these, these huge agitated states that just progressively get more spun out until you're psychotic basically, and you're living in some kind of delusional reality, and then you crash. So with bipolar, as high as you go that equally low, and it's a horrible thing. And I suffered from a slight version of that. In other words, I would get intense in the morning, and then I would go in the evening. The darkness would descend. What one author said, the midday darkness, darkness at noon. Oh, that was a book by I forget. Anyway, but it was that experience. But this stuff, we're not talking about that. There's no bad aftertaste. There's no plunge into the depths of darkness. And of course, one of the aspects of depression is that you feel cut off from the world. You feel alone. You feel isolated. You're cut off from God. You're cut off from others. You're cut off from nature. You're cut off from you. You can't even access anything real. It's just so scary and so lonely and so awful. And one of the ways out of that, of course, is karma yoga. It's like finding your path of service to the world and getting engaged in delivering that. And now that we're understanding more about flow states and the brain and how practice, and we can train and train the brain and put it in a position where it can go into that as needed, without sacrificing other parts of ourselves. It's just fantastic. And it's and when we have the podcast, the journey of integral recovery, we invite everybody to be part of it. It's really fun. It's really informative. And as we talk, this stuff just emerges, the new perspectives and understandings and stuff like that. But it's not enough just to get sober and maintain sobriety. I mean, that's just like, first grade. I mean, it's essential. You got to do that. You got to learn the alphabet before you can learn to read or write a great book. But it's the beginning. And after that, it's developing, into the highest version of yourself, and developing, finding your vocation. What are you here to contribute in a real way? Not what your mama thought, your daddy thought, what your counselor at school thought, but really comes from your soul. And once you do that, you can do all the work. You can self-organize. Say, okay, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to have to be fit. I'm going to have to increase my skills. I'm going to have to practice. And then I'm going to have to trust God, trust the universe, and jump in with both feet and get going. And be willing to fail, fall on my face, get back up, and keep rock and rolling. And that's the kind of attitude that gets things going and makes life an adventure and keeps us humble and connected with our purpose and others, and authentically happy, more times than not.
Yeah, I have talked about this a little bit on the podcast, but in recovery from my addiction and the accompanying depression and blackness and horror that went along with it, one of the most important things that I did that really made an impact, in addition to resetting my neurochemistry through exercise and meditation, getting some sleep and starting to eat right, take care of all that, was finding that purpose and starting to work towards things in small ways every day. I wasn't making a living doing anything, but having something that I cared about enough to work towards gave me purpose. And in that purpose, I found a path towards a much better life, one that I'm thrilled to be living today. Yeah,
amen. And it's just ongoing. It's like I'm really excited. We're writing the book about integral practice based on our experience and the science that's out there and everything we're learning about this stuff. But it keeps progressing. It's like I had this God blessed mental block about this little gym near where I go. I mean, I guess I'm a spoiled dog, because I go and I travel a lot, and I always go to, and I have memberships of good gyms up in Salt Lake, and there's a town 60 miles from here that's a beautiful gym, and the woman who owns it is a friend of mine, so she lets me work out there whenever I want. But it's 120 miles for a workout, which I do almost every week. Anyway, so I figured out. Now I was meditating, praying about it. I'm like falling down. I'm not working out enough here. What do I do? And the idea came, get a workout partner. And me being the lonely lone wolf, like 35 years of working out, I never really had a partner or even a trainer for that matter. I would just watch and see what other people would do and ask them questions. If I had questions about different exercises, and I learned a whole bunch. And of course I read and studied also. Anyway, so I was at the park, and with Lucy, I go every day, take her out there. And by the way, at the park, there's these children's, monkey bars and different things like that. And so I've started practicing doing chin-ups when I go, because I read I came across something on exercise on YouTube where in marine fitness tests that 20 pull-ups or chin-ups is like max. You don't have to get beyond that to score 100%. So I said, well, I want to start working that. And so I started about with 8 chin-ups, and I could probably do 20 now, but I've just been increasing every day. So I'm about 14 chin-ups. So I'm a few days away from the 20. And then when I get to 20, I will start with the pull-ups, the overhanded. And it's just a little trip, just to add to my physical practice when I take Lucy to the park here near my home. And so anyway, so the addition of the workout partner 3 times a week, and it's been good things have been coming out of the relationship. We've been old comrades and friends for a long time. And just stuff like that, just little things. Like, guitar. If you're going to watch the news or something, have a guitar on the couch in the living room when you watch TV so you can practice. And of course, as you can see over here, and I don't know if you can see, but anyway, all of my guitar is my music. So whenever I have moments, I'm always practicing. So these are just little tweaks and stuff. And I'm probably rambling a bit here, but it's all things that I'm learning about how to really get into the zone of practice and increase my capacities and things that I feel called to do and that matter to me. So that's it.
Let's see. We have Teja says, love Stealing Flow, truly a great track. So thank you very much for that. And I hope that it will continue to serve you and serve all of you well. David asked a little bit about the tech. That's actually what I'm working on right now, is writing this tech page for the manual for Stealing Flow and for the product page. It is a very comprehensive but smooth kind of technology to it. It incorporates several different entrainment methodologies, binaural, isochronic, and monaural beats. They're layered in at harmonically related frequencies, and I did some stuff with the proportions of the carrier waves to both smooth out the experience and, give it a really nice feeling. There's a lot more detail in the way that tracks are designed and the oscillation between frequencies that I'll have to get into in the manual write-up, but I think you'll be interested to read it, and we'll put that on the product page later this week.
Brilliant. Hey, thank you, Doug. And yeah, Doug's the writing that I've been reading that he's been doing for it. He's a great writer, a really good writer. It's so fun to have somebody else who's that into writing. Hey, do you guys have any questions or other comments that you'd like to make about what we've been talking about, or any related subject about, about the technology, meditation, practice, depression, being too happy, or whatever, the issue might be?
No, I don't see anything at the moment, but if anyone has a question, you can feel free to type it in the chat box.
Yeah, Stephanie says, I'm in a whole brain state when listening to music. Thank you. Oh, to your music. Thank you very much. Yeah. Music is like, there is no, it's kind of like spiritual stuff. There's never been a society known isolated in the deepest, darkest Amazon or in the Himalayas or something that we've come across ever, historically or presently. And I read one time there's like 50 to 70 tribes that have never had a contact with modernity hanging out in the Amazon, which I find amazing, somewhat, who knows, refreshing. But there's always some kind of spiritual thing going on. There's always this kind of sense of higher power, awe, spiritual, whatever level, that's at. And music, is always, people are always making rhythmic things and doing sounds and melodies. And not everybody's discovered harmonies, but coyotes certainly have. So, so music is just life-changing. And there's a lot of evidence now that if you are a musician, and I think iAwake probably does the same thing, But if you're a musician and you play a violin or lead guitar or piano or one of these things, that involve these really difficult instruments to play, that it really does great things to the human brain. And Einstein donated his brain to science, and finally, just like last year or something, got around to doing a dissection of it, and they found some really interesting things. Not surprising, but his neocortex was really big and well developed and really thick, and the connective tissue between the left, right, and hemispheres, the what do you call that?
The corpus callosum.
Corpus callosum was extremely well developed. So he had that rigorous kind of left brain, linear smartness, and also that kind of intuitive brilliance. I mean, he saw relativity as a vision, an intuitive flash before he ever did the math, and worked it out. And so you can see in Einstein's brain, it may have been his lifelong being a violin player that contributed to the breakthroughs that he made in theoretical physics that changed everything, without which the modern world wouldn't be, the present modern world wouldn't be happening.
So one of the most amazing things about musical training is its profound impact on your language processing centers and your ability to hear the different frequencies of spoken language, which I guess the brain areas are interconnected in such a way that you are able to speak and write better when you're musically trained. And of course, the complexity of the music affects your logical processing and your ability to work with mathematics as well. I'm particularly interested too in what you mentioned about the cross connection between the brain hemispheres. That's one of the things that working with iAwake is really good at, is that it stimulates the development of that corpus callosum, the ability to integrate your insights into processed logical language. A lot of times we have these things happening over here in the right brain that we just don't understand or don't know how to integrate, but the process of using binaural beats forces those hemispheres to work together and improves your ability to integrate those insights into your daily life. It's one of the reasons that the daily practice is so important, because those connections take time to build.
Yeah, and some neuroscientists say we actually have two brains, the left and right brain. And when you get those things together, it's kind of the yin and yang, the masculine and feminine. You get these things going together, you just got your cake, and you get to keep it and eat it too, as it were. So really, really remarkable stuff when that happens. And the intellectual acuity, but then again, the wisdom voice kicks in, the kind of intuitive, the flashes of, oh yeah, it's not a linear thing. And they're both great. But in isolation, if you just have the kind of intuitive, inspirational thing, there's a lot of the kind of, how do you get it into the world? How do you make it grow corn? Right? How do you get it practical? And the other becomes, if just the linear stuff, it becomes divorced from wisdom and intuition and becomes just dry and painful and often misdirected, so it really takes both, just like it takes the heart and the mind, the heart and the brain, it takes the left and the right. So we're just talking about this integration where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. It really creates a new level of complexity, function, and beauty.
John, I'm having one of these flashes of insight right now. I'm glad we're talking about this, because I didn't put it in the manual, but are you familiar with the work of a gentleman named Win Wenger?
No,
his idea is increasing the connection between the hemispheres by going into these kind of dreamlike trance states and then describing what's happening as you see it. The ability to verbally describe the images that you're seeing in a trance state is a profound way to unite those two hemispheres and do this. And he has a whole training protocol based on ways to do that. So it occurs to me as I'm saying this, that when you go into writing using stealing flow, for example, that's exactly what you're doing, is working your two hemispheres together to verbally express some of the insights that are coming through while the entrainment is playing. So that is a powerful practice that contributes to development of insight and ability to access it in your other practices as well. You can take that with you into meditation and whatever by practicing in that way.
Yeah. And I've been noticing my tennis game's getting better. I'm finally reaching the point where, God, I've been playing tennis for years now, and I'm not just a rookie at this anymore. I'm actually getting pretty good, and it's like, oh yeah, I can place the balls. There's this kind of unconscious thing that goes on, in any sport that we develop ourselves in, the better we get, the more fun it is, at any skill. And we have a gentleman here. We're looking. Sir, I'm not sure who you are, but would you like to share? Is there any other questions or comments?
It's Christina, looks like, is with us on video.
Oh, yeah. Did you have something you wanted to ask or share?
Oh, looks like.
Give me some time to experience what's going on here.
Okay. Was there a specific question you wanted to ask us today, Christina?
Yeah. For example, when I'm listening acupuncture, I always have a strong pressure behind my two eyes.
Mm-hmm.
The kind of not headache, but it's very uncomfortable, and it's continuing for hours. When I'm using just 20 minutes, it's not it doesn't appear, but when I'm using it for an hour, then I have that. And I tried it for 3 times, and it had happened all 3 times the same.
And Christina, how long have you been using the track?
I mean, the first time I was using it 60 minutes.
Okay. But have you been using it for like 3 days, 4 days, 3 months, or has it been a long time that you've been using it?
No, I mean, it was for the first time because I just...
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then I was thinking maybe it's the weather, because usually I don't have headache. And then after a while, I let it out for 3 days, and then I tried it again, and it was the same. And then the next day I tried just 20 minutes, and it was okay, and I didn't feel this pressure behind my eyes. So it has to be something that the 60 minutes are too much.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, and you have to be, when using things, really, it's powerful technology, okay? So we have to be very sensitive. And there's kind of a meme, like most people experience things in a general way. However, there's a bunch of us also that have kind of, we're all very similar. Our brains have basic structures and, all kinds of things that are similar. But often we have our kind of idiosyncratic reactions to these things. And I think, so you definitely need to dial it back for a while. And 20 minutes seems to be working fine. So don't push yourself into that overwhelm. And you may find that after a while, of using that track, that you can actually listen to it longer if you choose. But for right now, I'd say definitely dial back and stick with the 20 minutes.
The interesting thing is that with hard wave meditation, I don't have this feeling, and it's the same technology, no?
Well, yes and no. I mean, in a general sense, it's the same technology. However, each track is unique in of itself. So, and all, and sometimes I've had tracks that I've used and go, no, this is kind of unpleasant. I don't want to use that. And I'll go back and I'll start working. Then I come around again and I use it and I have a totally different experience. So it's kind of the old Zen saw, you can't step in the same river twice. When you use these tracks, or over time, our experience of them will be somewhat different in often subtle, but also in powerful ways, because our brains just keep evolving and changing over time. So, but if you are, and sometimes, that feels like mainly like a physical psychosomatic reaction. Sometimes we'll have upheavals of emotions and stuff that need to get out and process, and that can be uncomfortable, but at the same time be very healing. So, so I would just recommend with audio acupuncture Or is it digital acupuncture you're using? Is it audio or digital?
No, it's digital acupuncture.
Yeah, digital, which are lovely tracks and very powerful. But I just go slow and stick with the 20 minutes for for a couple of weeks, and then if you want to, you can try doing a half hour and see how that goes.
Yeah, for the moment I was just trying out a couple different things to see what fits the best for me, and this was then just what surprised me, because I really have very rare headache, and this time it was for 3 times, so I was thinking it must be with this technology that it was too much for me.
Yeah, so go slow, and when it's just like when we start new programs, like if we're going to start getting fit, you got to start just like walking around the block, not running a marathon, and just go slow and go at your own pace, and be very just aware of your own, of your own reactions and stuff like that, and really be, if it starts feeling like it's a little overwhelming or that, just back off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
I figured out that already.
Yes, I'm sure you did. But anyway, thank you for sharing that, Christina. We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you for the information.
We have another question here from Stephanie. She asked about profound releasing. Should she listen to it daily, and will it take several months till the release takes place?
Do you want to feel that one?
Well, it can be a very powerful program to work with daily, and in my experience, the release. So I've only been using it for a couple of months, and I don't generally use it every day, though I have gone through stretches of a couple of weeks where I was using it every day. And what I have felt is that the release is more of a gradual unfolding of layers rather than one big overwhelming thing that happens all at once. Now, certainly the more frequently you work with it, the more quickly you'll be able to peel those layers back and kind of see what's underneath, getting to the real core of the issues there, because there are some things that you don't even realize are at the root of the issue until you've been working with it for a while, and you take something simple and you let it go, and dig a little deeper and you let it go, and don't realize what was at the root of it until you have pulled back the curtain. So the more often you work with it, the more quickly you will get those results. But it's not something that I would approach with any kind of rushed expectation, but rather from a place of waiting to see what you find and taking the time to work with it in the way that it requires.
Yeah, and you might alternate, and I mean, if you're kind of intuitively getting, I need to do some release, you might use profound releasing one day, or use that and then do with a follow-up track. I mean, I usually meditate. I'm probably meditating over an hour a day now on average, and that's just because I find that when I do that, I'm happier and I function better. But then, and I haven't used profound releasing a whole bunch, maybe once or twice, just in the beta testing thing. So I'm glad you were able to share that. But we certainly, as in Bella's case, we get many testimonials of how well this stuff, and Joe is just creating some great stuff, and it makes me want to get back and use it some more. So and it's very interesting about these things, about releasing or about spiritual growth. You just got to practice. You just got to do the work. And when you're there, you're making yourself available to whatever needs to happen. And when I first started using this technology years ago, I had been somewhat of I call myself a tormented mystic. I mean, I've had these big, powerful spiritual experiences over my life, but, they'd go away and I'd kind of be just lost, paradise sort of thing. But when I started using it, I had a huge non-dual BAM thing in the first week. And then I started doing a lot of the emotional releasing after that. But this emotional stuff, it does what it needs to do. And I think it's not just that we can't force it, even with this technology that opens up and allows us to be in a space where it can happen. But it's also part of our unconscious, and there's a certain wisdom within us as we begin to surrender to the process and knows how to happen. Some of us have big, powerful, like class 5 spiritual experiences that get us on the path. But most of us, it's kind of a subtle thing, the daily showing up, the daily prayer, the daily meditation, the discipline over time. And then, 6 months later, we go, wow, it's different now. I feel more connected. I have this kind of deep, abiding sense of it's okay. My faith is just, is not contingent on what's going on in the outside. There's something interior happening, and it's a subtle thing. So sometimes the releasing will happen a little. In the case of post-traumatic stress disorder, there can be these really powerful things, and then that we think about them, we go back, and we almost re-experience the original trauma, which can be very painful. But with time and practice, that begins to fade from being in a 3D theater with shaking sheet and you re-experience it in your body to a black and white photo. Well, yeah, I remember when that happened, but it no longer has that emotional charge to hurt us anymore because the energy has gently released over time. And sometimes it can be very powerful releases, like that. But I think the gradual is probably the more, maybe even healthier, but it's usually what happens with most of us.
And the practices are synergistic too. The more you work with the other meditations with PMP and things like that, the deeper you get, the more comfortable you get, the more your energetic system changes, which fuels your work with the releasing. And then the more you continue to work with the releasing, the deeper you'll be able to go with PMP and the more spiritual depth you'll be able to reach.
Yeah, and I absolutely right. And I mix and match the tracks as kind of I intuitively feel. It's like, all right, maybe the night before I'm thinking about, okay, today I'm going to do this, and tomorrow I'm going to do that, whatever. And you just begin to kind of sense into that as time goes on, and the more kind of the different tracks you can use and blend together, I think it's just healthier. Just like if you go to a gym, you go to a really good gym, there's all kinds of things. There's things to climb, there's things to pull, there's machines, there's free weights, there's yoga classes. And the more that we integrate all that the better it will be. And when you go back to tracks you really love and you've been doing other stuff, your favorite tracks, they seem to be more powerful because you spent time, evolving your brain in other ways at the same time. So that's kind of what it seems like from my own experience and then listening to everybody for the last, 7+ years.
Let's see. And do we have any other questions or comments from anybody?
Well,
anything else you wanted to add, John?
Get outside in nature. That's important too.
Yeah.
So, no, anyway, it's a great time. There's a lot of really creative things happening. And so, and feel it in you guys too. So it's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And I've been doing profound releasing in tandem with daily Qigong practice, meditation, and TCM from my Qigong master. What is TCM?
Nope. Let me unmute here. There we go.
Traditional Chinese medicine.
Oh, of course.
Working on the meridians and liver and
Hey, let me say this. Years ago, when I was suffering from brutal clinical depression, I put myself a program together, and my brother had given me this Qigong videos from his masters in China. I mean, this was like, gosh, over 20 years ago. And these videos were extremely, compared to today, poor quality. And you just had this young master and this kind of doing, kind of funky Chinese music. And I started doing that. Oh my God, it was so helpful. I have such great respect for subtle energy work in Qigong. I think it probably helped save my life in a very dark period. So I think with this technology, all of the stuff we do, almost all of it across the board, whether it's subtle energy or it's binaural or isochronic or these different waves, the way that we create these entrainment tracks will work very good with any kind of subtle energy practice, whether it's Tai Chi or Qigong or Aikido. I've had very experienced martial artists say when they use our stuff, all their forms and their moves they feel the Qi more, they become more aware of it. I am a Reiki practitioner, master, so they say, as according to the training and all that stuff. But I've noticed that when I do this stuff in relationship to doing Reiki, which I don't do very often, just when it seems to be needed, it seems to work really well. And I'll tell you one story, then we'll finish this up. I've probably shared this story before, but it's one of the weirder stories of my life. Pam and I went to this ashram in the Bahamas because, anyway, who was there? The name comes. Krishna Das was doing a musical retreat. And if you guys know Krishna Das, if you don't, get to know him. You know, go to YouTube, or if you have Apple Music or something like that, go listen to him. He's he's got this great big voice and this call and response, spiritual chanting. He's really a master, and he just transmits this stuff. So we were there, and there was and Pam is more into kind of the world music and you know, the devotional music. She knows a lot more about it than I do. I'm more in the blues, you know, folk, rock, jazz, into the spectrum. And there's this famous flautist, Indian flautist, who was there. I guess he was performing with Krishna Das, and his wife was injured. And I don't know, she hurt her back and leg, and she couldn't walk, and she was in great pain. So for some reason, I go and, you know, said, I went up to the flautist, the Indian guy, and I said, you know, I can heal, you know, I do this laying on the hands and healing stuff. And he said, well, that's a great idea. And then later on, this guy came to me, one of the authorities, says, you know, we have some of the greatest Indian doctors in the world here now, but thank you very much for your offer. Anyway, so that's fine. And then later on, they came in, they got me, said, she really wants you to do that. So, okay. I said, why? You know, I don't walk around saying I'm a healer, but anyway, so I went in and I put the headphones on her, and I just did this Reiki thing with her, and for about a half hour. And then she said, you know, she felt great, and she was relaxed. And, you know, I thought it might have just been a momentary thing, but apparently she got healed. And then after that, as I'd walk around the ashram, the different Indian doctors had come up to me and bow. And I was like, what? So anyway, all that to say that when we're doing subtle energy stuff in conjunction with this technology, I think it is just a super powerful yes and, and they both inform each other and make each other powerful. And I love the idea of doing Qigong with this work. And I need to, I lost my old videotapes. I've never found anything, the new DVDs and everything, aren't nearly as powerful as that very primitive thing that came out of China 20 years ago. So, yeah. And the Chinese, of course, have been hip to subtle energy and Qi long before the Westerners have become conscious of it. But now with the new technologies, we can verify this stuff, you know, with our gadgets and our technologies, that it is actually real. So anyway, I think we probably said enough about that. Any last thing that anybody would like to ask? Yeah, you too. I keep on rambling. That's very kind. Thank you. Anyway, love you guys so much. And, you know, just keep working on ourselves. That's the gift we have. You know, we are the Holy Grail, each one of us, that we've been looking for our whole lives. And we begin to go into our depths, and we polish the vessel, and we put the good stuff in. Then the great stuff comes out. And that's how the world is healed. And that's how we gift the world and those who came before us and are here now and the generations to come. And not just humans, but all sentient beings. So aho and amen. So anyway, love you guys, and hope to see you next week back. And this stuff will be recorded for those of you who couldn't be here live, and it'll be posted on YouTube, I believe. And there it is. So thank you so much. And again, Doug, thank you also for being my partner in this. Appreciate it.